Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually we are sifting through, geopolitical analyses or complex technological blueprints.
Right.
But today we are charting a course into uh, pure narrative chaos. The source material you send us, this thing labeled Uncle Tom's Babin Commentary, is unlike anything we've encountered.
That is, putting it mildly, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
We are diving deep into a commentary, a summary of a fictional narrative that is so dense, so extreme, and just so wildly unconventional that it truly demands expert synthesis.
It really does.
It's a text that blends, it's got everything. Children's media, political figures, financial exploitation, and just staggering transgressive behavior.
It is truly a piece of work. It almost acts as a shortcut, not to being well-informed about the world, but about a very specific, deeply unhinged fictional universe.
Exactly.
So our mission here is clear. We are mapping a narrative fever dream. We need to extract the structure, the core events, particularly this trip, Laura's children going to the cabin, and the underlying, often very twisted, character dynamics. All to ensure that you, the listener, can follow the madness without getting completely lost in the details.
This is essentially an exercise in structural criticism of a narrative that actively defies structure.
It really seems to.
The commentator provides us with this detailed, almost high-speed account of a storyline that feels like it's designed to push every single boundary simultaneously.
Okay, let's just unpack this immediately then. Let's start with the setting and the core ensemble. The story opens with a character named Steve Hale.
Right.
But we very quickly meet this whole cast of characters whose main function seems to be defined by just a general air of bizarre, low-stakes existence. You've got Matilda, Julian, Felicia, and Baum. Yeah. They are the initial atmosphere.
That's a good way to put it.
They're the backdrop of what you might mistake for normalcy, against which the real central conflict is about to just completely explode. But the most important character in that opening cluster, I think, is Leonard.
Leonard, who in this narrative stands as this sort of philosophical anchor, a strange, almost satirical representation of American pragmatism.
And his philosophy is simple, if maybe a bit blunt.
Very blunt.
Save money, live better. It's just this dedicated commitment to self-reliance and capitalism stated right up front.
And what's fascinating here, what's really key, is that this one line, Leonard's guiding principle, is placed right at the beginning because it immediately sets up the central thematic failure of the entire story.
Oh, interesting.
Leonard represents this kind of financial virtue, which is then immediately and utterly corrupted by every single adult figure, especially Uncle Tom and the parents, as the narrative progresses.
So every major action from here on out
Revolves around distorted financial transactions, petty greed, or exploitation. It makes Leonard's mantra this perfect point of ironic failure that hangs over everything.
That makes a lot of sense. He's the straight man for the impending financial anarchy.
He is.
And speaking of anarchy, after a quick, aggressive side note from Fernando threatening some celebrity, which just adds to the generalized tension, we get the main catalyst.
The meeting.
Laura calls her children for a meeting. The mission. A trip to Uncle Tom's cabin.
And the premise itself is, it's mundane, a family visit, but Laura immediately introduces this concept of mandated responsibility, establishing a core dynamic that's going to define the children's experience.
Right. The specific instruction.
The specific instruction is given. Cody, who's the older brother, must look after his younger brother, Max. And we learn Max is only 3 years old.
So this sets Cody up immediately as the moral compass of the story.
He's the protective element.
He's the one figure who actively cares for the most vulnerable party in this whole situation.
And this immediately contrasts with the motivations of the adults who are supposed to be responsible for them. The bizarre logistics start with Steve Hale, the podiatrist, deciding he must join the trip.
And his reason.
No, not to help out the family, not for any altruistic reason, but because, and this is a direct quote, he needs to explore new feet.
That detail is so specific and professionally creepy.
Isn't it?
It perfectly illustrates the source material's tendency to take a normal plot device, a car ride, and just layer it with these extreme, nonsensical character motivations. Steve is a high-priced chauffeur whose primary focus is feet, not children.
And before they can even sort out the car details, we get another sharp, strange detail from Meadow, the older sister.
Ah, right, about her uniform.
Concerning her ROTC uniform, she compares her badges to cow udders.
Cow udders. It's this immediate injection of dark, kind of grotesque humor that just ensures the tone remains decidedly off-kilter.
It does. The source commentary never allows for a truly normal moment. Even a simple uniform description has to carry this bizarre visual baggage.
Now onto the defining debate of this section. Laura and Steve arguing over transportation. Steve ultimately decides to drive the kids since he's heading there anyway.
This should be a simple solution, a nice neighborly thing to do.
Should be. But the financial element immediately warps it.
It does. Steve demands a truly staggering price for this chauffeuring service.
How much was it?
$500.
$500 for a car ride.
This is the first major financial exploitation of the trip, but Laura's solution is even more revealing about the institutionalized opportunism within this family.
She is initially hesitant to pay $500 for a car ride, which is understandable. But she solves the problem by deciding to use the dumb people cruise checks,
And that phrase.
based on the custody she and James have over them. We have to pause here because this phrase, the dumb people cruise checks, that's jargon from the source material that demands immediate explanation for you, the listener.
Absolutely. This term is critical yet deeply opaque. The narrative offers no clarification on who the dumb people crew are, but the implication is chilling.
It sounds like some kind of custodial arrangement.
Right. Perhaps involving wards of the state or vulnerable adults where Laura and James have control over their financial assets. The casual deployment of a derogatory label, dumb people, immediately followed by the casual exploitation of their checks.
To fund a vacation for their kids.
It highlights an astounding degree of moral callousness.
So this trip is literally paid for by exploiting the resources of unnamed, vulnerable, dependent people under their custody.
That's what the text implies.
This establishes the parents as being fundamentally compromised. It directly links financial exploitation to institutional power over others. It taints the very foundation of the trip before the car has even started.
It does. It signals that Laura is willing to violate a custodial trust for a mere $500 convenience. This confirms that thematic counterpoint to Leonard's philosophy we talked about.
Save money, live better.
For these characters, financial gain, even minor, justifies any moral compromise.
And just as they're about to leave, we get one last chaotic pre-departure scene involving Junior.
Junior, yeah.
He runs in with a piece of scientifically inaccurate information, declaring that the sun is a planet.
It's a moment of basic childhood confusion, right? Something a kid would say.
Exactly. But Steve Hale, the $500 podiatrist, the recipient of these exploited funds, his reaction is terrifyingly intense.
He threatens to cut off his feet.
Wait, why is the threat specific to feet? Why his feet?
Because Steve is a podiatrist.
Ah.
The narrative makes sure that even his rage and his threats are rooted in his professional skill set. A simple disagreement over astronomical facts results in the threat of profession-specific physical violence.
It's a dark, quick gag.
But it reminds us that the adults driving this trip are unstable, aggressive, and very expensive.
So here's where it gets really interesting. They are finally on the road, funded by custodial exploitation, driven by a foot fetishist, and destined for a place that will make this entire setup look tame.
We transition now to the arrival at Uncle Tom's cabin.
And the arrival immediately establishes Uncle Tom's dominance and his specific brand of exploitative demand. He expresses pleasure at seeing the children, sure.
But his very first action is not a welcome. It's not a hug. It's a task.
He immediately tasks Steve, the high-priced, professionally driven podiatrist, with rubbing his back.
Steve, who charged $500 for the ride, is instantly demoted to Tom's involuntary masseur.
So Tom's cabin operates under a regime of immediate, arbitrary personal demands, regardless of your social status or what you charge for the ride over.
Exactly. Next, Tom pivots to logistics. They need dog food for his dog, Jessie. But it is the reveal of Tom's astonishing financial status surrounding this errand that truly defines his character and the atmosphere of the cabin.
We learn that Tom is not conventionally employed.
Not at all. His income is sourced from disability benefits and food stamps.
Okay, so social safety net. But then
we get the narrative bombshell, the crime element.
Yep.
He supplements this welfare income by, and I quote, sometimes robbing from the IGA grocery store's cash registers.
So it's a combination of state support and petty crime.
This is crucial for understanding the source's commentary on this slice of American life. Tom is not poor. He's financially anarchic.
Right.
He abuses the social safety net, and then he uses petty crime to fund his extravagant consumption, which we are about to see. He is the ultimate transgressive counterpoint to Leonard's save money, live better.
Tom lives better by breaking the law, exploiting the system, and demanding free labor from his guests.
Precisely. And this financial anarchy immediately leads to a brazen, discriminatory act concerning the dog food money.
He looks at Cody, right? The protective older brother.
And makes an explicitly offensive remark about his autism, stating that because Cody is autistic, he cannot be trusted with any money.
It's a moment of just calculated cruelty.
It is. Tom uses Cody's diagnosis as an excuse for blanket distrust, and in the next breath commits the ultimate act of financial irresponsibility.
He gives the money to the 3-year-old.
He hands the money and the responsibility for the errand to the 3-year-old Max instead. It undermines Cody's protective role and elevates Max, the vulnerable child, into a position of incredible risk.
And Meadow points out the obvious flaw in this plan.
She says Max is only 3.
But Tom's response is a truly unsettling blend of the financial and the perverse.
He immediately calls Max sexy old money.
Wow.
The commentary notes that Tom expresses regret over the comment, which shows this brief flicker of self-awareness, but the line has already established the intense perversity at the core of Tom's character.
It links the objectification of the child directly back to these themes of wealth and resource exploitation.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the entire cabin environment is a toxic blend of financial exploitation, legal anarchy, and personal perversion.
And they haven't even gotten the dog food yet.
Not even close. First, they take a detour for lunch.
The scene shifts to Sweet Magnolias, the restaurant, which immediately spirals into chaos centered around Tom's gluttony.
He attempts to order 10 Philly cheesesteaks. 10. This reinforces his need to consume excessively and irresponsibly. It's just an extension of his criminal financial habits.
And the waiter at Sweet Magnolias? This is where the narrative plunges into absolute surrealism, injecting an incredibly obscure pop culture reference from the early 2000s.
The waiter, inexplicably, is from the old children's show Oobi,
The show with the hands.
a puppet show where the puppets were just hands with googly eyes. And Tom's reaction to this walking piece of childhood nostalgia is violent contempt.
He yells at him.
Aggressively, he yells, "Shut the fuck up, stupid talking hand."
So why? Why introduce the Ubi waiter only to subject it to abuse?
It feels like deliberate narrative boundary destruction.
Yeah.
The source material is taking a familiar, even nostalgic piece of children's media, inserting it into a scene of adult dysfunction and financial gluttony.
And then immediately making it the target of adult aggression.
It's a way of saying that no aspect of cultural memory is sacred within this narrative framework. Nothing is safe.
And the culinary chaos culminates with Tom eating every single one of those Philly cheesesteaks.
All 10 of them.
Thankfully, Steve, the resourceful, if morally compromised podiatrist, was prepared.
He had brought backup sandwiches in his bag. It's this small, ironic detail of competence in a sea of Tom's excessive consumption.
So this whole sequence, from the financial details of Tom's life to the discriminatory behavior towards Cody and these bizarre cultural clashes, it just solidifies Uncle Tom as the narrative central disruptive force.
A character who exploits every resource, whether it's physical or cultural, that's around him.
When they return to the cabin, the narrative immediately escalates from financial exploitation to, well, to the most extreme moral violation.
To sleeping arrangements.
Cody, trying to maintain his protective role, insists he will sleep with Max that night.
And this is the flashpoint of the central conflict. Uncle Tom explicitly denies Cody's request.
He says no.
He says he will sleep with Max. And he reinforces this denial by repeating the earlier inappropriate comments, claiming the boy is really young and sexy.
This moves Tom's disturbing tendencies from just offensive commentary into direct, threatened action against a vulnerable child.
Absolutely. Cody and Steve then have a discussion about their shared disapproval of Tom, which leads to Cody revealing details about another character, a guy named Roy.
What about Roy?
Cody reveals his dislike of Roy because Roy, and this is another quote, plays Stretch the Willy with his brother.
Okay, so this introduces a third party involved in highly inappropriate behavior. It suggests that this kind of sexual deviancy is normalized in this fictional world.
It does. But the truly unnerving part of this exchange is Steve Hale's reaction.
The podiatrist.
Steve, the character who seemed merely opportunistic and demanding, instantly makes this conversation competitive.
What do you mean competitive?
He reveals that he has the highest score in that specific, deeply inappropriate game.
Wait, let's unpack that. Let's unpack that contamination.
Why?
Steve, the $500 podiatrist, who is supposed to be the adult in charge of transporting the children safely, is revealed as the reigning champion of a game that fundamentally aligns him with the same moral corruption as Uncle Tom. Why would the commentator deliberately align the high-priced, functional adult with the same perversity as the anarchic uncle?
It seems like a very intentional narrative choice to remove all moral high ground from every single adult figure in the story.
So there's no reliable protector here.
None. The children are surrounded by adults who are either financially exploitative, racist, or, in the case of Tom and Steve, participate in competitive deviancy. The absence of a moral anchor just amplifies the children's vulnerability to an extreme degree.
And while this tension is building, the girls are misbehaving.
A brief distraction.
Tom briefly pivots back to arbitrary authoritarianism, banishing them to work outside. But this is just a distraction before we get to the core of Tom's perversions.
It is.
So this raises an important question. How does the narrative handle Tom's sexual role, moving beyond just implication to the explicit, deeply bizarre descriptions?
The source commentary does not shy away from detailing this at all. The list provided is extreme and clearly designed for maximum shock and absurdity. Tom discusses having sex with weird objects.
Okay.
Fucking spaghetti noodles and having intercourse with Barack Obama.
The use of a former president's name in this context. That's a classic example of this narrative's method, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's smashing together the highly recognizable and real with the utterly absurd and transgressive. It maximizes the shock value of the statement.
But the claim that transforms the bizarre into the horrific, the part that directly impacts the children,
is the subsequent revelation that he feeds his sperm spaghetti to the children.
Right.
This is the moment of ultimate contamination and terror within this fictional world. It transforms his bizarre sexual claims into a direct physical threat against the very kids he's supposed to be watching.
And this horrific climax is immediately followed by a crucial piece of meta-commentary.
Yes, revealing the source's internal struggle with its own content.
The commentary notes that the actor playing Tom, a man named Roland, identified as the commentator's brother, was blamed for making the character act like a very sick pedophile around kids.
This is perhaps the most fascinating structural detail in the whole piece. The writer, the commentator, is using the commentary layer to distance the script from the actions,
Blaming the actor.
suggesting the actor, Roland, either ad-libbed or took the character in a direction the commentator deemed excessive. It implies a moral tension within the production itself, a fear that the transgressive content went too far.
So it forces the commentator to assign blame to the performer rather than the writer.
It elevates our analysis from just a plot summary to a dissection of authorial intent and responsibility in creating these kinds of shock narratives.
So the source is self-aware that the content is going into very sick territory, and it tries to deflect that responsibility onto the actor. It's a narrative attempting to control its own fallout.
Exactly. And despite the gravity of these revelations, the narrative structure demands we plunge immediately back into concurrent subplots happening outside of Tom's cabin.
Forcing distraction and maintaining that sense of narrative sprawl.
We jump immediately to the gangbang subplot involving Kimmy and Fernando. Like many of these side plots, it's introduced for a moment of shock and then it's just dropped.
It just contributes to the general atmosphere of relentless boundary pushing.
Then we move to the chicken nugget drama.
The chicken nugget drama.
A bizarrely mundane domestic dispute about fast food preparation. Jimmy wants chicken nuggets and is begging his girlfriend Stephanie to make them.
And Stephanie's refusal is the only moment that sounds remotely grounded in reality.
It is. She argues logically that he's a grown man and should make them himself. But this moment of domestic frustration is immediately amplified by the commentary of others. Gary suggests that Stephanie should divorce Jimmy over this.
Over a chicken nugget disagreement.
And Stephanie clarifies the highly unstable relationship dynamics. She says she isn't even dating him and tells Gary to leave her alone.
So this subplot, though minor, it's crucial.
It is, because it demonstrates that the instability, the moral chaos, and the strange, ill-defined cluster of relationships are pervasive throughout the entire fictional world, not just confined to Uncle Tom's cabin. It's everywhere.
The marital instability is further detailed in the side plot with Laura and James.
Prank.
James pulls the classic terrible prank of saying he wants a divorce, immediately saying it's a prank, love you, but then he uses that opportunity to segue into a specific negative rant about Cody.
This ties back to the pattern we saw earlier, adults expressing disdain or negativity towards the children, specifically Cody, the one protective figure.
It just confirms that the parental unit is emotionally manipulative and contributes to the general toxic environment surrounding the children.
Right. And then we're back at Tom's cabin. The group is outside for a bonfire.
And this is where one of the most unexpected and hilariously specific pop culture grudges surfaces.
Triggered by Max simply mentioning the name Kimmy Gibbler,
From Full House.
Tom immediately erupts in this detailed and profound hatred, fueled by a competitive history. His animosity dates back to 1995.
What happened in 1995?
They competed in a pie eating contest. Tom lost. Kimmy Gibbler won the gold medal by eating an astonishing 51 pies.
51 pies. That's not just a grudge. That's a professional level of competitive eating pathology dedicated to revenge.
It is.
That level of bizarre specificity makes the details stick with you.
It does. It raises the intensity of his grudge from petty dislike to a decades-long, meticulously planned vendetta. Tom admits he has been plotting revenge ever since, specifically intending to blow Kimmy Gibbler up sky high.
His methods are as extreme as his grudges.
And fate intervenes in the form of a 3-year-old. Max accidentally provides the crucial information Tom needs,
He reveals that Kimmy Gibbler lives with them.
which sets the stage for potential future conflicts, using the children's casual knowledge to empower Tom's destructive, explosive intentions.
Following this explosive plot reveal, the scene shifts back inside Tom's house, and he doubles down on the theme of inappropriate education, focusing again on Max.
He recounts the story of his sex with Barack Obama, reinforcing the surreal and shocking nature of his earlier claims to the 3-year-old. Then he attempts to explain the birds and the bees.
As only he can, I imagine.
And, as if the presidential fantasy wasn't enough, the narrative tacks on an extra, truly transgressive detail. He explains that he even had intercourse with his dog.
So every piece of communication from Uncle Tom, whether it's education, logistics, or personal history, is just laced with profound abnormality and transgressive content.
Ensuring that Max, the most vulnerable child, is subjected to the full scope of Tom's chaos.
As the trip finally comes to a close, we see the real emotional toll on the children. Cody is seen crying.
Right. He's distressed about his breakup with his girlfriend, Ariana. He is in a moment of deep vulnerability.
And the response Cody receives from the 2 adult figures present, Michael Parrish and Steve Hale, the highly paid podiatrist, is devastating.
They use this moment of emotional turmoil to deliver explicit, discriminatory advice.
What do they tell him?
They tell Cody that he shouldn't date mixed people or bulk people and should only date white people.
So, as we impartially report on the content of this source material, this is a clear instance of overt racial discrimination being pushed onto a vulnerable, crying teenager by the supposed authority figures.
Yes. It further contaminates the adult characters, positioning this toxicity as just another facet of the morally bankrupt environment the children were subjected to throughout the entire trip.
This sequence confirms the narrative's dedication to stripping away any sense of adult decency. The adults are financially corrupt, sexually perverse, and now overtly racist.
And what's fascinating here is that despite all the chaos, the emotional trauma, the sexual threats, and the racism, Uncle Tom still manages to monetize the trip in the end.
He achieves his ultimate goal as the final financial exploiter.
The bookends of exploitation are complete. The trip began with Steve demanding $500 paid for by exploiting vulnerable people.
And it ends with Tom demanding a personal tax on the children for their ordeal.
Tom announces it is time for the kids to go home, but not before demanding his price of admission. He demands that each child pay him $20.
Depending on the number of children, that's a significant final payout for him.
And the reason he gives perfectly ties back to his defining characteristic: gluttony and financial irresponsibility.
Let me guess. The cheesesteaks.
He needs the money so he can go back to Sweet Magnolias and buy another 10 Philly cheesesteaks. The children's ordeal ends with them directly financing Tom's endless, petty desires.
It just confirms that exploitation is the beginning, middle, and end of this trip.
It is.
The children comply and go home, which offers a small, realistic moment of resolution. Their final consensus is immediate and universal.
They are never going over there again.
And the shared trauma acts as the definitive critical review of the entire experience.
And the source commentary wraps up with the author's final thoughts, rating the entire episode a 7 out of 10.
A 7 out of 10.
The commentary describes it as very strange, with a perverted uncle, plus a Latin man and his weird wife from a sitcom, preschool references.
A 7 out of 10 for a story featuring sperm spaghetti, threats of amputation, competitive child molestation, and a decades-long 51 Pi Vendetta.
That rating is itself a commentary on the source material's success, isn't it?
It has to be. It suggests that the sheer density and frequency of transgressive, shocking material were enough to elevate the score, regardless of the plot coherence or moral depravity. The shock value carries the narrative.
It shows that in this specific surreal narrative universe, engagement is measured by the extent of the chaos and the violation of taboos, rather than, traditional storytelling metrics.
So what does this all mean? We reflected on the sheer density of character details, the extreme plots, the rapid-fire, jarring references crammed into this one narrative commentary.
This source material truly serves as a lesson in information overload and expert synthesis.
It's a text that purposefully uses information not to inform, but to shock and confuse, making structure the only way to navigate it.
And the core pieces of knowledge you, the listener, can take away from this analysis are clear. They're woven through the entire narrative like toxic threads. First, the overarching and pervasive theme of financial exploitation.
It bookends the entire trip.
Starting with Steve's $500 fee paid with the ambiguous dumb people cruise checks, and culminating in Tom's final $20 tax on the children. It reinforces the idea that every transaction is abusive.
Second, the profound moral corruption of the adult world contrasts so sharply with the children's vulnerability.
Cody's protective instinct is set against the total moral failure of the adults, notably Uncle Tom's explicit perversions and Steve Hale's shocking reveal as a competitor in those inappropriate games.
It ensures there was no safe harbor for the children anywhere.
And third, the specific bizarre details are what make this narrative stick in your mind. The 51 Pi contest fueling Tom's hatred for Kimmy Gibbler.
The abuse directed at the Ubi waiter.
The mixing of political figures with extreme sexual acts. These serve as the specific, memorable anchors in this relentless storm of absurdity.
The source material is remarkable in its methodology. It takes these widely recognized cultural touchstones, whether they are sitcom characters like Kimmy and Fernando or real-life political figures, and shoves them into this framework of moral depravity and chaos.
This blending of the familiar and the utterly transgressive forces a consideration of modern satire and narrative boundaries. If a story can earn a 7 out of 10 by fusing childhood nostalgia, presidential fantasy, and explicit perversion with financial abuse and racism.
What does that say about the current state of audience appetite for shock?
Exactly.
So the provocative thought we leave you with is this. Uncle Tom's commentary achieved its goal by pushing every boundary simultaneously. If this is the metric for success, consider what familiar element in your own life, whether it's a beloved old children's show, a political institution, or domestic routine, might be ripe for such a surreal, chaotic deconstruction.
What happens when the absurd and the horrific become indistinguishable?
Think about the internal logic of a world where a 51 Pi grudge is the motivation for plotting explosive revenge. Mull on that until our next deep dive.
Why is my butt hurt? Well, by the time I got to you, I ran out of foot cream to put on my penis, so I had to go in raw. What, so you did me in the butt? Oh, yeah. So you also like $20. Here? Here. Why? My sweet magnolia. I got $20 from you, man. I know it didn't work, so... No, fine. I'll give you an Andy Griffin DVD. I think we should have a 1 hour long special about Andy Griffin. $20 from you and $20 from Steve. Okay, here you go. Get the fuck out of my house. Steve, alright, everybody. Say goodbye to your weird, perverted Uncle Tom. Goodbye, Uncle Tom. Bye. Bye, sexy kids. Yeah, we're never going here again. This place is weird. I'm sorry, kids. That was just not a good place to be. My wee hurt. Yeah, I mean, he was like chewing on it or something. I don't know, man. Let's go back to the house. Alright, you clear mom the Oh yeah. We're on the way home. Also, Uncle Tom raped all of your kids. What? Why would he rape all my kids? Have you met him before? He cooked spaghetti and fed it to Cody or something. No, let's just go home. Hey guys.
What are you doing on the phone when I called you?
Oh, nothing. Well, if I'm being, listen, do you know how I'm infertile? We've been trying to make a baby. I'll try one more time.
That's not how that works, Laura.
Well, it might work this time.
That, I think you just don't comprehend what the word infertile means.
Well, how can I make a baby?
You can't.
I want a baby on my
own. Womp.
I want a baby on my own.
Womp.
Hey, Laura, why not being a surrogate? Why can't you get somebody to be a surrogate for you? That sounds like a bad idea.
No one would want to carry your baby. You're a loser.
Plus, you're very, very ugly.
That's exactly. I agree with whatever the fuck that kid's name is.
Jason.
Jason. I agree with Jason. You're very ugly, Laura Stella.
Well, how was the kids over there? Were they good or?
He touched them all. He fed them cum-filled spaghetti, and then he let his dog impregnate them or something. It's a long story. Also, he said he's gonna send a bomb over here and kill Kimmy.
What? Okay.
What do you mean, okay? You know, whatever. It was the worst experience of my life, except that time where I had to treat Michael Jordan's feet back in 1989.
Okay. Max, are you okay? My wee hurts.
Yeah, Uncle Tom was chewing on it during the night while he was sleeping.
It's great, baby. I'll make sure it's gonna be okay. I'll put some cream on it.
I think Uncle Tom did enough of that. He put a lot of cream on it.
No, the eczema cream.
The cream he put on it came from his, you know what, never mind. I don't want to talk about that.
I know it's cum. It's sperm. What sperm?
So see, when a man gets really excited, his baby like sort of on and it starts milking, and that's what the sperm is.
Can I do it?
Maybe in like 10 years or so.
Because you can't really produce the milk yet. See your balls.
No one wants to hear you explain it to him.
Alright. Alright, that's... Oh, the sun is up